This is a story of how my auntie, my parents, not physically, but mentally and emotionally.
Hey beautiful people, how you all doing today? It's your girl Destiny here and welcome back to my channel. How have you all been? Hope you guys are doing great. So today's video is a story time that you need to watch. This story time has gone viral on TikTok. Everybody's talking about the story time and me, I cannot wait for the story time, okay? So this story time is a story time of a sister who came online to share the story of our auntie on her life appearance, both mentally and spiritually. And she said it wasn't physical, but mentally and spiritually, the auntie was able to, on her life appearance, and destroy their mental state and their spiritual state. And for me, I'm just like, okay, like guys, you guys need to watch this story. Like it's long. Let me just give you guys this is a long, but it's a very juicy. Like you're not going to get bored. She's an amazing storyteller. And the story is something I feel like everybody needs to hear. And also, she has a lot of proof, letters to show, pictures to show everything she's talking about. And guys, like I said, this is a video that you're doing something at home, like or you're snacking or something, you're just chilling, but you guys need to watch this story time. I'll say this is one of the best story time I've ever done on this channel. I've said it again. But anyway, the video is long already, so let me just stop here. Let's get into this video and then we'll come back and talk more. And shout out to this creator telling her story and her parents' story. Shout out to her. Anyway, let's go check it out and then we'll come back and talk more.
This is a story of how my auntie, my parents, not physically, but mentally and emotionally. So before I get into the story, I do want to say that I have some receipts and some pictures that I will be inserting throughout this video. So let's start. So both of my parents were born and raised in Ghana, and they initially met, in Ghana in the early 80s. And when they first met each other, I remember them both telling me that they instantly fell in love with each other. So fast forward into a few years, something happened in Ghana. I'm not really going to get into all of that, but something happened in Ghana and my mum and dad wanted to relocate and, just start afresh, because Ghana wasn't the same Ghana that they grew up, knowing. So luckily enough for them, well, that's what they thought. My mum had two older sisters. I'm going to call them Sister 1 and Sister 2. So Sister 1 decided to send them an invitation letter to invite them down to London. So that's what they done. So everything went through, their documents went through, and they proceeded to go to London. So they arrived in London September 1986. They've moved in with Sister 1. And, when they touched down London, first thing that they done was do up tourism. So, they went to central London, went to Buckingham Palace, Trafalgar Square, etc., etc. Just living it up, having fun. Like, that was the first time that my mum has ever travelled. My dad has travelled previously because he was a soldier when he was in Ghana, so he travelled when he was in the army, so travelling wasn't new to him. But for my mum, it was very exciting, like, wow, she's in London. So now it's been a year since my mum and dad are living with Sister 1, and she is in a serious relationship now, and her partner decides to move in with her. So now, you can imagine 4 grown adults sharing a small space. It wasn't ideal for both my parents plus Sister 1. So Sister 1 and my mum and dad decided to ask Sister 2 if my mum and dad can move in with her, because it was literally just her and her daughter at that time. Now she has 4, but at that time it was just her and her daughter. So Sister 2 was like, yeah, why not come and move in with me? So my mum and dad moved in with Sister 2. So things were going well, Sister 2 and my mum catching up, everything's going well. By the way, guys, I'm not going to be saying Sister 1, Sister 2 anymore, because Sister 1 is now out of the picture, and I would just be saying my auntie or my mum's sister, so that you don't get confused. So now my mum and dad have been in London for a while now, just over a year, and they're starting to get a bit bored now. Obviously, when they was in Ghana, they was always busy. Like I said, my dad was in the army, so he was always on his feet. My mum didn't really work, but she would accompany her siblings and sometimes go to the farm, so she was always busy. So, you know, it was a big culture shock for the both of them, I would say. So yeah, they decided to have a talk with my auntie and see if they can start work. So they had that conversation with my auntie, and the first thing my auntie said is, basically my auntie laughed in their face first and said, do you know what it takes to work in London? And obviously they didn't know none the wiser, and she said, you are illegal immigrants and you don't have the status to work in the UK, so if you want to work you would need to, you know, require documents to work. So obviously my mum and dad were oblivious to how they can obtain all of that, and she came up with the idea of getting fake identities in order for them to work. So now the names that they used to work, they weren't actually fake, they were actually real people. So the name that my dad used was my mum's older brother's name, because he already had his status within the UK. And the name my mum used was her brother's wife's name. So yeah, they used that and they managed to get jobs. So my mum was working as a cleaner for an airport, and my dad managed to get a cleaning job for a cleaning company. So they were both excited. They were like, yes, like, you know, they're finally, you know, getting somewhere. They're gonna achieve their goals. One of their goals was to buy a property and, you know, to move out of my auntie's house. So, you know, working hard, saving their money, and this is where hostility starts and jealousy started with my auntie. So my auntie started seeing that they're earning, you know, small money, because my dad would offer to do shopping for the house, and he would give my auntie small money here and there, you know, to pay for a small bill here or a bill there. Yes. So she was like raising an eyebrow, like, these people have just come to the UK and now look at them. So she started acting weird towards them. I remember my mum used to say to me that she would try and spark up conversations with her sister, and her sister would just flatline ignore her. Like, she would just ignore her. She would not even acknowledge that my mum's talking to her. I remember my dad would tell me that there were times where she would just make little arguments with them, but upon all of this they did not retaliate. My dad ignored it, and you know, they just continued to put their head down and work hard. So I believe it was a year or two that has passed, my dad managed to get him a really good job as an underground train driver. And to be honest with you, like, I'm not making no excuses for my parents, but back in those days, a lot of Africans would come down to the UK, and because they thought that the UK was the land of opportunity, they would come down and obtain fake identities to work. Like, it wasn't a new thing. A lot of people were doing that. So yeah, so yeah, my dad managed to get him a really good job as an underground train driver, and honestly my mum and dad were thrilled, because they were like, yes, we're one step closer to our goals, to our dreams. And you know, that was really important. And you know, the focus for my dad really was to get out of my auntie's house, because he really could not take the hostility, because my dad does not like hostility. He was such a friendly person. If you really knew him, like, he was so down to earth. So yeah, I'm just going to fast forward a little bit, because there's a lot to this story. So I remember a time my dad told me that he was at work, and he came back home, and he went into his bedroom, and he noticed that certain things have been moved around. Things like his letters, amongst the letters was his pay slips, and he believed my auntie, you know, was the only culprit to do that. So he didn't say nothing. He just kept his head down, and he said to me it was like she wanted him to know she was snooping through his things. Why, I don't know, but you know, those were some of the things that she would do, going through my dad's stuff, like just checking like how much he's getting paid and things like that. It was weird. It was very, very weird. But God being so good, they managed to get enough money to, you know, buy their first property, and that property was in Mitcham, which is in South London. So now the next thing that they had to do was sit my auntie down and tell her that, you know, they found somewhere and they want to move out. As you can imagine, my auntie didn't take it really well. She said to my parents that they're very ungrateful after everything that she's done for them.
So they should
but, you
know
know,
about.
my parents took every insult, everything that she said to them, and just said, thank you. Just thank you for everything you've done, basically, and deuces. So they left and, you know, moved out and started their life, you know. Now they've achieved getting their property. The next step was to start a family. So my mum and dad were trying, you know, very hard to conceive, and unfortunately my mum suffered 2 miscarriages before she actually conceived me. So now she's pregnant with me. They're ecstatic, they're happy, everything's going, you know, right in their lives right now. So at this point, my parents and my auntie have not spoken. They do not speak. They've literally just gone their separate ways. That's it. So yeah, fast forward, my mum's, you know, at the last stage of her pregnancy. So she's in her 3rd trimester, and you know, one day they're chilling at home and my dad said there was a massive knock at the door, like boom, boom, boom. And his heart just stopped. He was like, we're not expecting anybody. Like, no one really knows where they live. Yeah, so he was scared. So he literally got up. So as my dad was about to open the door just literally pushed him back. And who was it? It was police. Yeah. So police were like, it's police, we're looking for Francis Pons, police, whatever. And then my dad was scared. He was like, oh, it's me, like, what's going on? So the police was like, oh, Mr. Upon, you've been arrested for, you know, dishonesty, obtaining a property by deception or something along them lines. I can't really remember what it was. But yeah, my dad was so scared. He was frightened. My mum, heavily pregnant, was in tears, like just scared. They were both scared. So as the police officer was about to take the handcuffs and pull it on my dad was like, whoa, wait, let's talk about this. Let's try and resolve this. But no, the police officers was not having none of it, and they literally slammed my dad down. And as the police officer slammed my dad down, he sprained his arm and he sustained a few injuries as well. It was really, really hectic for my parents. So yeah, both of my parents were arrested, you know, for that charge, and they were both taken away to prison. So my dad was taken to Wormwood Scrubs, and my mum was taken to Holloway female prison, and I believe that closed down in 2016 actually. So yeah, my dad spent 6 weeks at Wormwood and my mum spent 3 weeks at Holloway. So whilst they were in prison, my mum and dad used to always write to each other, especially my dad. And my dad used to write to my mum more, you know, checking on her well-being, checking on the pregnancy, how I'm doing. Mind you, my mum was a month away from giving birth because, you know, she was in prison in October and gave birth to me in November. So yeah, this was all happening whilst my mum was in a vulnerable state. So you can imagine her state of mind. You know, even my dad, like, not getting to physically hold his wife, talk to his wife, you know, see the development, the growing of the bump, even though it's the last trimester, like every little thing counts. So yeah, in one of the letters, my dad wrote to my mum and said that he found out who was behind all of this, because basically my mum and dad managed to get lawyers when they were in prison, And my dad's lawyer obviously had to get all the witness statements and stuff like that for the case. And the first witness statement that, you know, was handed to the lawyer was my auntie's statement. And the lawyer relayed this information back to my dad and told him all the names that was involved. And yeah, my dad was in shock. He was in utter shock. So in the letter, he tells my mum that so-and-so was behind it, meaning my auntie was behind it, due to her jealousy of them purchasing the house. And he would never ever forgive them. Like, he would never ever forgive them. But not only that, my auntie got others involved, and those others were, you know, friends. My parents thought they were their friends involved. So it was like a little ring of them, and my auntie was the ringleader. So yeah, it was very, very devastating for my parents to know that, you know, my mum's own sister could do this to her and her husband. Not only that, but my dad managed to get, you know, my auntie's witness statement. I would insert it in this video, but the only problem is it is very, very old. Like, the writing, you can't really see the writing. It's all faded. But yeah, but I do have it. I do have it. So now at this point, both of my parents' mental health were declining, especially my mum's. And, you know, things were just getting worse and worse. And my mum, 3 weeks came up and my mum finally got released. And literally a few days later, my mum gave birth to me. And I'm gonna end it here. Stay tuned for part 2, where I'll go into more detail. This is part 2 of how my auntie my parents, not physically, but mentally and emotionally. So now my mum's been released and she has nowhere to go, because obviously they've taken the house from my mum and dad. So now my mum is homeless.
Wow.
She has little money left. So she decides to get on a bus and just take it to the last stop. She had no plans on what to do. Obviously, she has no one to talk to, no one to reach out to. So she just gets on the bus up until the last stop, and she kept doing that for a couple of hours. Within those hours, she started getting pains in her tummy, and obviously that was the start of contractions. So she decides to get on a bus to go to the hospital so that she can find out what's going on. So my mum arrives at the hospital, and now it's time for her to get checked over. So the midwife checks her over, and she wasn't exactly at the, you know, 4 centimeters dilation point, but her vitals were very high. So for example, her blood pressure, etc. So because of that, they had to admit her into hospital. And 2 days later, that's when she gave birth to me. She had a C-section. She had to stay in the hospital for up to a week with me. So that was the case. So once the week came up, my mum and myself was discharged. So after she got discharged with me, she still had, you know, the keys to the property. Remember, they've taken the property away from her, so she couldn't go back there. But she still had the keys, and, you know, she's just given birth. She has nowhere to go. It's winter, it's cold. So what does she do? She ends up going to the property. So she puts the key through to see if, you know, if it still works and if they haven't changed the locks. So now she's put the key through the door and the key still works. The door's open. But as you can imagine, there's no gas, there's no electric. The house is freezing. Like I said, it was winter times, and my mum had no money, and obviously she had to feed me. She couldn't breastfeed me because she wasn't really eating herself, so she couldn't really produce breast milk. So what she done was she got a crisis loan, and a crisis loan is something that they used to do back in the days where they give you emergency money if you're in a vulnerable state or if you're a vulnerable person. So that's what my mum done, and she received £10, and that £10 had to sustain her for a while. So she couldn't actually buy me formula because that was expensive. So what she decided to do was buy me baby food. You can imagine, I'm a newborn baby. I have 3 kids myself. I'm a mother myself. All the mothers out there, you know that you can't give food or baby food to a newborn. Like, at that stage, it's literally only milk. They can't even drink water. So yeah, that's what she was feeding me. Remember, no electric, no gas, so she couldn't even warm up the food to give me. So she was literally feeding me cold baby food out of the jar. So one evening, my mum said she felt so low, so vulnerable. She felt like she wasn't herself, so she literally put me in a sling and left the house. She got on a bus and once again just kept going to the last stop, again another one going to the last stop, until she just felt so low about herself that she just didn't want to be here anymore, and she just wanted to end it all, because what is she really living for? And that was her frame of mind at that time. She started walking towards a busy road, and a lady from afar could see my mum. So the lady saw my mum from afar, and she noticed that my mum wasn't in the right state of mind just from her body language. So as my mum was approaching the road, the lady literally ran and stopped my mum, and my mum broke down and just started saying everything as if she knew this lady. But my mum said she just had no one to talk to, so she literally just vented everything out. So the lady was so lovely to my mum. She got my mum a bed and breakfast for that night, and in the morning my mum told me that she followed the lady and sorted emergency accommodation out, and yeah, the lady just helped her so much. So once all of that was sorted and she moved into the emergency accommodation, she said it was very lonely. It was very, very lonely. She was so scared. She had no one to talk to. But luckily enough, my dad's lawyer found a way to communicate with my mum. I'm not sure how though. I don't remember my mum telling me how that happened. But the lawyer found a way to communicate with my mum, and my dad and my mum got into communication again. So a few weeks later, my dad was released from prison, and he joined my mum and myself at the emergency accommodation. So now they are back to square one. Things are just looking so low for them, so dark for them. And honestly, my dad was a fighter, but honestly that took a lot out of him, and that's when the beginning of him not having trust for people started. So yeah, they was building their life slowly. I'm just gonna fast forward a little bit because there's so much to this story, but yeah, they were building their life slowly. So from emergency was temporary accommodation. I believe it was the second temporary accommodation that we had is when my mum and dad gave birth to my brother, and after that we moved into our permanent. I believe I was like 11 or 12. I can't really remember the age that I was when we settled into our permanent accommodation, but yeah, we finally settled into our permanent accommodation, and that's when my parents were like, listen, no more bad luck, no more negativity. We're gonna strive and we're gonna do it. And that's when my dad decided to go back into education and study to become a mental health nurse. So my dad, you know, achieved that, and he started as a mental health nurse. I believe he started in 2005. Yeah, I believe he started as a mental health nurse in 2005. And once again, my dad is a hard worker, so you know, he put his head down, working hard, just trying his hardest to get back on track. So now things are looking up, and you know, my dad is sending money back home to Ghana and building his property out there, because obviously his retirement plan is him and my mum retire and go back to Ghana and just live life. So he was sending money home back to Ghana and getting his house built, and he built a lovely 5-bedroom bungalow in Ghana, which was one of his biggest, you know, proudest achievements that he done. So yeah, I believe my auntie got a whiff of this and was extremely upset. She was angry the fact that my mum and dad have managed to pick themselves up. You know, my dad's built his 5-bedroom bungalow back home. He's also helped my mum's family, you know, build their family house. So all of that was raging inside of her. Unfortunately, around this time, my mum started having little symptoms here and there, and unfortunately she got diagnosed with end-stage kidney failure. I believe that was around 2008. So then my mum started to have treatment, which is dialysis, 3 times a week for 4 hours. So it was draining. And I remember my dad would, you know, encourage my mum, you know, the pep talk, whatnot, but you could see in his face that he was also worried, but obviously he tried not to show this. So yeah, my mum was going through a tough time, you know. Me and my brother saw my mum go in and out of hospital. Obviously I was a teenager around that time, so I wasn't really coping with all of this too well, so I would try my best to stay out as much. My brother was like 7 years younger than me, so he had no choice but to stay at home. So he witnessed a lot of my mum going in and out of hospital. So it was a normal day, and usually my mum calls back home to Ghana to speak to her family, especially her niece. So this niece, her mum is my mum's older sister. That's another sister of my mum's, but she passed away a few years ago. So yeah, she called, was speaking to her niece as usual, but then this conversation was kind of different. So my mum's niece suggested that she would love to donate a kidney to my mum, and honestly my mum was overwhelmed. She was shocked. You know, someone loves her so much to donate a kidney. She was honestly so overwhelmed. They have a really good relationship because my mum and dad, you know, looked after her growing up, and my dad also put all of her kids through school, was paying their school fees, you know, so they really had a strong relationship. My mum's niece, you know, called my mum mum, called my dad dad. She even changed her surname to my dad's name, Opong. So, you know, there was a lot of love there. So my mum and dad thought anyways. She didn't give an answer straight away when she spoke to my niece that day, but what she did say is that she would speak to my dad and then, you know, come back to her about it, and also she does need to discuss this with my niece's mum as well. So now she's gone away and started discussing this with my dad. My dad was very hesitant. Would you blame him, considering what my auntie done to him, you know? So he was very hesitant, but my mum spoke him round, and in the end he accepted and went with it. Then they also spoke to my cousin's mum, and she gave the thumbs up and was like, yep, she accepts. So yeah, they started the process, and I believe the NHS, you know, was involved as well, and they offered her a medical visa to come to London to do the transplant for my mum. So once everything went through, all the documents went through, she came to London in the year of 2010. So when she arrived, everything was well. Like I could see like my mum being happy, you know, smiling, and my mum and dad knew that, you know, when someone comes from abroad and, you know, the tourism, they've done all the tourism that they can, they start becoming bored because they've been through it. So they decided to get a job for my cousin. And my cousin is a really good hairdresser back in Ghana because she went to hairdressing school. That's something that my mum and dad put her through. And there was a hair salon at the bottom of my mum and dad's road. My mum and dad knew the owner very, very well. And my dad decided to have a talk with the owner and was like, listen, my niece has come from Ghana. She just wants to do a little part-time job, you know, just to earn a little bit of money so she's able to send money back home to her 3 kids. So the owner was like, oh, yeah, fine, why not? Then she started working at the hair salon. So now, you know, everything's going well, everything's going fine. So now this is where things started changing. At first, when appointments was being made, my cousin would follow, you know, my mum, go for the checkups. You know, everything was going fine until one day she started slacking. So when it was time for an appointment or whatever, my cousin would be like, oh, my body hurts, or I've got a headache, or, you know, just slacking. But my mum didn't really say anything. What she did say is to my cousin that, is she sure that she really wants to do it? If not, she's not going to be upset, she's not going to be angry. She should just let her know. So then one day came and we got a letter through the post, and it was a letter from St. Helios Hospital stating that my cousin has been here for a while and her medical visa is running out, and it looks like she's not willing to do the procedure, so it's time for her to go back to Ghana. And if she refuses, then they're deporting her back. So she's read this, my mum and dad have, like, everyone's reading it. So my mum looks at her and says, this is the outcome, we have to start getting ready for you to go back to Ghana. And then this is when things went left. My cousin's attitude started changing, like slowly. So she would be coming home late from work, and mind you, the salon to my mum's house is like a 3-minute walk, if not that. Do you get what I'm saying? So there was no excuse to be coming home like an hour late or an hour and a half late. So, but my mum and dad, they didn't really say nothing. They were thinking, do you know what, she could have made friends at, you know, the hair salon, so let's not really think too much into it. Until one day my mum had a dream where I believe a dog bit her leg. I think it was a dog that bit her left leg, to be precise. I want you guys to remember the left leg, right? Okay, so she had a dream, a dog bit her left leg, and she woke up with a massive scream. And when she woke up, there was a bite on her left leg. It's crazy, I know, but there was actually a bite on her left leg. And I remember from there on, my mum started having really bad pains in her leg, and my mum will be laying down on the living room floor, and me, my brother, my dad, my cousin, and my first son, we would all be in the living room, and my mum will be in pain. We're all like, oh mum, oh, like rubbing her. My cousin will be sitting there like this.
In my own house, you would leave?
No flinch and nothing. She wouldn't even acknowledge my mum like she was in pain. Nothing, guys, honestly. So anyways, that would happen. And then one day now, it was time for her to come home from work. An hour turned into 2 hours turned into 3 hours turned into 4. By the time we blinked, it was 12 midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. She's nowhere to be found. In that time frame, my dad has gone to the salon like 5 times. Do you get what I'm saying? And the people in the salon are saying, oh, she left time ago. Like, she left time ago. Anyways, now we've all gone to bed, woken up, she's still not back. So my mum and dad now are getting worried because obviously she's in their care. My mum and dad are calling around, panicking. No one knows where she is. Things aren't looking good. So now I want to fast forward a little bit. So a few months, I believe it was like 7-8 months down the line after my cousin disappeared, it was me and my dad and my son at home. I was literally washing my son's bottles in the kitchen, and in my mum and dad's house where the kitchen is, there's a window, and that window you can see outside. So I could see people circling my dad's car. It was 2 men and 1 woman, just circling my dad's car, just, you know, looking very suspicious, but they wasn't in uniform or anything. They were in their own clothes. And then I saw that they started approaching the front door. So as they were about to approach the front door, I called to my dad because my dad was upstairs getting ready for work. So as I was saying, oh dad, there's a few people circling your car, the doorbell went. So as I went to go and open the door, they were like, hi, we're looking for Francis Opong. And I'm like, oh, who are you? And they were like, oh, is he in? And then I'm like, daddy, someone's looking for you. So he's come down the stairs now, and they're like, hi, are you Francis Opong? And he was like, yeah, I'm Francis Opong. And they were like, sir, you're under arrest for and human trafficking of body parts. And honestly, I just wanted the floor to swallow me whole. Like, anyways, I'm gonna end it here. I'll be dropping part 3 soon, so stay tuned. Thanks.
Wow. Wow. So definitely, there's going to be a part 2 to this story, which I already have, which I'm getting into now. But so far, let me know what you think about the story down in the comment section. But as always, please keep it respectful. You're on this channel, we're allowed to disagree, but we'll do it in a very respectful way. So please go ahead, feel free to share your thoughts. Okay. Like, this is such a crazy story. I could suspect that it was the cousin that went to the police to report that she was raped and being trafficked, obviously. But this is just crazy how, like, sometimes you see siblings and you see some siblings, they are not talking to each other, and you see the amount of hate that goes in there. And for me, I've seen it, and you see siblings in the same household, almost like in competition with each other. And for me, that really speaks a lot about the household that they were raised. I give it to my parents, I give it to my mom, especially. Like, the kind of relationship myself and my younger ones we have is an amazing one that I don't think anybody jealous anybody. Like, everybody just like, I think my mom raised us in this. I don't. Your life is your life, and it's not that I don't care, but do you? I'm happy for you, but whatever your achievement is, I'm happy for you, and that is it. Do you get what I'm saying? And I do appreciate that. But I've actually seen siblings that there's a lot of hate, there's a lot of animosity, there's a lot of competition. And for me, a lot of time people say, oh, jealousy is something that drives you and move you. I know. Jealousy is an evil feeling that if you have it, get rid of it, because you can kill somebody with it. You can harm the people you claim you love. You can harm families with it. Just because you see somebody doing well. And this is why, like, sometimes in the Africa context and all that, especially in Nigeria, you see people talk about how when you're progressing, just keep your mouth shut, don't do the most, because if you do the most, it's because of things. Because honestly, there are people out there that will just jealous you out of. See, I've had a couple in my life that will just make smacky comments, not for my siblings, but make smacky comments about you even just have achieved it. They may even be doing way better than you, but they'll still be jealous. Anyway, I don't want this video to be too long, but yeah, let's go check out part two, and then I can't wait to check out part two, guys. Like, yeah, let's go there, let's go there. But share your thought, share this video with somebody that you want to be part of the conversation, okay? And give the video a thumbs up, smash the like button. It helps YouTube to push out my content, and that'll be you supporting me and this channel. So go and do that. Subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you guys in the next video. Deuces.